Hello viewers and welcome to another match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I present the first of a series of 8 store championship matches sent in to me by friend of the channel Anton Elizarov. On the left we see our 2015 Russian national champion. It is Vasily Gudkov, today playing as the Space Marines faction Warlord Captain Cato Sicarius. On the right, we've got a gentleman instead opting to play as the Astra Militarum. It is Pavel Illichev, and for today's game, he's chosen Broderick Worr. Broderick begins the game in possession of our initiative token, and his first deploy action is going to be throwing out a copy of the 1-cost signature attachment, the Commissarial Bolt Pistol, currently affixed to his Warlord. It boosts Broderick up to a modified attack value of 3, and further, whenever a friendly army unit leaves play from the same planet as sits Broderick, you can pick an enemy army unit at that same planet to be the recipient of a single point of attachment delivered damage. But on Cato's side of the table at planet number 1, we've got a copy of Blood Angels Veterans, 3 cost, 3 attack, 3 hit points, 1 command icon, and so long as it remains ready, each and every time it's dealt damage, you prevent the first point thereof. But back on Broderick's side of the table at both planets 3 and 5, we've got a copy of Sakhalem Shrine Guard. It's a 1-cost 1/1 with a command icon. It's a soldier trait army unit, and considering they're currently garrisoned at green strong point type icon possessing planets, that means that their printed text is going to be active, and therefore they receive a +1 attack and +1 HP printed bonus. Further, because Broderick is their warlord and they're sitting at green planets, they get an additional +1 attack. They cannot retreat and they cannot be routed. So for the cost of 1, you get a 3 attack, 2 hit point unit, and with a command icon to boot. But Broderick has thrown out a copy of the Inquisitorial Fortress. It's a 2-cost support, which, as an action, you can exhaust it and sacrifice it in order to pick a non-warlord unit to rout, whether your own or your enemies. And looks like at planet number 5 on Cato's side of the table, he's got a copy of a glare obscured 2-cost Vasily Trailblazer with a couple command icons. It's got 1 attack, 1 hit point, and it also is relocatable courtesy of the mobile keyword, which nicely gets around Broderick's printed army units that attempt to retreat from his planet are destroyed text. It's also got a copy of the limited keyword 0-cost attachment promotion, bringing it up to a total of 4 command icons, and that is definitely a very desirable target for Broderick to show up at. But Broderick has stumbled upon not just his signature attachment, but also his signature support. It's going to be the enormously powerful 2-cost forward barracks, and whenever we see a combat round come to a close, that means that Broderick is going to be able to put into play a 1/2 guardsman token with the soldier trait, and considering that's an Astra Militarum unit, as is anything else, it's going to be able to attack for 2 at a green strongpoint type icon possessing planets, and whether you've got a token or an army unit or your warlord as your AM unit of choice, at the end of a combat round, each and every one of those units is all going to result in the same guardsman token being generated, and that is a fantastic tool of attrition for Broderick. But planet number 5 is going to be the destination of war. Planet number 3 is going to be the destination of Cato, and looks like planet number 1, Eloith, currently under contest, is going to be that planet where if you win a battle at it, you're given your choice of one of the top 3 cards of your deck to be added to your hand. But anyways, command struggles. Planet number 1, that's going to be a couple of cards for Vasily to the left, our Russian national champion. Planet numbers 2 and 4 are going to be no contest. Planet number 3 is going to be a couple of resources for the rather daring Captain Cato Sicarius. Planet number 4, like I said, no contest. The Vasily Trailblazer has only moved there during the combat phase, and planet number 5 is going to be a couple of cards picked up by Broderick. So note, Broderick is going to be able to elicit a forced random card discard, and looks like planet number 1 is going to be indeed one entirely uncontested by Captain Cato Sicarius. Note, it's going to be a blue technology icon possessing planet, and at the present moment, we don't actually see any other blue planets in play, so even if our Space Marines fortunate enough to come across a copy of the Imperial Fist's Devastators, which are really his only option for potentially destroying that forward barracks, he currently doesn't have any options to play that unit out and trigger its ability to remove the barracks. Interestingly, looks like we see a copy of Drop Pod Assault. I can only imagine that's going to be happening at planet number 3, because I would imagine Captain Cato Sicarius is a little bit nervous about trying to kill off that copy of Sakalim Shrine Guard. Even a single shield icon means that Cato might end up taking a swing of 3 directly to his face, and if we come to the end of a combat round and there's an AM unit sitting at that planet, that means forward barracks is going to be able to trigger, and then it's going to be very quickly impossible for Cato to end up winning that battle. But let us see what Drop Pod Assault put into play. It's going to be a copy of the unique Veteran Brother Maxos, 3-cost, 2 command icons, 2 attack, 3 hit points. Looks like Inquisitorial Fortress is going to be sacrificed. He is going to be routed despite his combat action, which he didn't have the opportunity to trigger, I suppose, being that you can pay the cost of a Space Marine unit in hand in order to put it into play at his same planets, because Broderick had, well, I guess in combat, Cato used his action to do a Drop Pod Assault, and then in response, Broderick could remove it before it had the opportunity to put a Space Marine into play. But looks like Captain Cato Sicarius' worst fear is being manifest right now. He took a swing, promotion interjected itself. That's going to be only 1 point of damage dealt to the Sakalim Shrine Guard. This Shrine Guard takes a single point of damage. It swings in return. Looks like Cato does not have an Indomitable or anything along those lines. That's going to be a Guardsman token generated at the end of a combat round. Cato retreats. That means it's going to be -1 resource for Cato, +1 resource for War, and now planet number 5 is going to be activated courtesy of Broderick Worr. That's going to be a forced random card discard, and that's going to be a copy of my aforementioned Imperial Fist's Devastators. So for the cost of 4, that's a 2-command icon, 4/3, and whenever you play it to a blue technology icon possessing planet, you can pick and destroy a location support, and that is probably, God, I don't know, one of maybe 2 of those cards in Cato's deck. So best of luck to you, my dear national champion, for being able to overcome that tremendously powerful forward barracks. But let's see how things end up going for our Space Marine and for our AM player. Contrary to popular belief, forward barracks is not an auto win. So let's see how things go. Earthcast Technician at planet number 5, played by our Space Marine, which now commands initiative. That's going to be a 1-cost 1/1 with a command icon. It allows him to look at the top 6 cards of his deck for either an attachment or a drone trait card. Looks like he finds a copy of Iron Halo, reveals that to his opponent, adds it to his hand, and I'll now be very curious if we end up seeing that interplay on Cato, just because Cato's already sitting at 3 points of damage. And I guess, what really kind of stinks for Cato is because that Sakalim Shrine Guard that he attempted and failed to kill was, of course, a soldier. We could have even seen a copy of Elysian Assault Team being dropped into play to try and finish off Cato. So definitely Broderick Worr is one hell of a warlord, and we'll have to see how this match ends up playing out. But planet number 1, we see a copy of Worr's signature army unit. It's going to be the Anxious Infantry Platoon. For the cost of 2, you can scarcely dream up a better unit than that. It's going to be a command icon, a 3/3. Forced reaction is at the end of a combat round. You've got to pay it 1 resource or retreat it, but need I remind you, Broderick Worr means that any AM unit at a green planet cannot retreat or be routed. So because the platoon is currently at a green planet, it's you're basically going to ignore that forced reaction, and it's also going to be able to swing for 4, although it currently does not have initiative. Note that our current new 5th planet is going to be Atrox Prime, the orbital bombardment style planet, and looks like our Space Marine is going to be very torn indeed in regard to what exactly he wants to throw out onto the tabletop. Cato's movement is going to be rather restricted this round because of Veteran Brother Maxos and a Blood Angels Veterans kind of clogging up his HQ, and he's going to have to pick very carefully where he wants to drop off that retinue there. He's already got a command unit sitting at planet number 5, so if he were to, send Cato to that planet, he wouldn't win command there. The earliest possible victory condition for our Broderick Worr player is going to be planet number 4, so it would definitely definitely be a bit of a mistake to send 6 resources worth of units and such powerful abilities outside of that planet. But planets, 1, 2, and 3, or sorry, 1, 2, and 4 all have reasonably powerful units currently garrisoned at them. The Vasily Trailblazer is sitting at Farron, the Route, a target non-warlord unit planet, but all those AM units are currently sitting at green planets, and that means you're not going to be able to do anything about them. So if Cato himself maybe were to come across a copy of the Talisarian Tempest Blade, which I would imagine those Earthcast technicians are in that deck almost exclusively to retrieve, although finding a shield card in the form of Iron Halo or Nocturne Ultima Stormbolter is definitely none too bad. Anyways, if he were to come across that, he'd be able to reliably kill some of these AM units, but then again, each and every AM unit currently in play, apart from, I believe, Broderick Worr himself, is going to be a soldier, and all those non-warlords are eligible for Elysian assault teams, which, at a green planet, are going to be able to swing for 3, so it's looking like a very difficult choice indeed for Cato, where he wants to arrive, but it's pretty trivial for Broderick. I think Broderick could easily show up to 3, win a couple of resources for himself. The Vasily Trailblazer, of course, could mobile away from Broderick despite being destroyed were it to attempt to retreat, and I guess Broderick could also end up going to Aatrox Prime. But if that were the case, unless Cato ends up with a bunch of units in his HQ, then that battle ability isn't going to be very useful. But I guess it's all going to come down to, does Broderick want to be able to rout an enemy unit? And does he, want resources, or does he really want a card? Planet number 1, by the way, is going to be Taurus, the planet where if you win it and you control fewer units than does your opponent, you're rewarded in the form of 3 cards or 3 resources. So that's kind of going to be a desirable destination, I suppose, for Cato. But he's currently got 5 units relative to our Astra Militarum's 6. And forward barracks, like I said, at the end of a combat round, it's always going to generate a guardsman token, and that is going to pose a giant problem because at planet number 1, we now see another AM unit, that Stalwart Ogre in 2 cost, 1 command icon, 2/2, and it's immune to enemy events. Broderick, very interestingly, shows up at planet number 1. I could not have necessarily guessed that. He's not really a warlord you want involved in the thick of combat, but Cato shows up at planet number 2, so that's Planet number 1 is going to be a card and a resource to the right for Broderick. Planet number 2 is going to be a couple of resources to the left for Cato. Planet 3 is going to be a couple of resources for Cato. Note, the Vasily Trailblazer shifting to planet number 4 to beat the 1 command icon during the following round of that Scalum Shrine Guard, and I suppose that means it's not going to be a destination where Cato's going to want to arrive. But note, Planet 4 is going to be a couple of cards to the right for Broderick Worr, and Planet 5 is going to be a card and a resource to the left for Cato. Taurus is going to be won by Broderick, entirely uncontested. That's going to be a red and a green material and strong point type icon, respectively, added to the victory display of our AM Warlord. And now that's going to be Cato, the only ready unit at planet number 2. He's going to take a swing. He's attacking the Guardsman token. Very interesting choice. So that Guardsman token is currently a 2/2. It is going to be destroyed. And Cato has a whole hell of a lot of resources and probably not a whole lot of cards. Cato generates a resource from killing that unit. That's going to be an Elysian assault team being dropped into play. And now let's see what exactly is going to happen here. That assault team is going to be attacking for 3. I can only, oh god, that's going to be a copy of Primal Howl, discarded by Cato. Nobody wants to use that as a shield. Okay, I was going to say that seemed like it was 1 point of damage too much, so that's going to be another point of damage on Captain Cato Sicarius. Looks like we see veteran brother Maxos put a tactical squad Cardenas into play. It's going to be a 2-cost 1 command icon, 1/3 with area effect 1. That's going to be 2 dead AM units. Do we have another Elysian assault team to potentially bloody Cato? Looks like the answer is going to be no, and therefore let's just call it -1 resource for Pavel, +1 resource for Vasily. And man, things are looking pretty dangerous for Captain Cato Sicarius here. So looks like we've got some damage stacked on Cato, and if you can remember, I believe it was 4 total points of damage on him. Now, that's that's going to be a whole lot of Space Marine units stationed at a green strong point type icon planet, and therefore if they're going to be able to win Ossus 4, it may not seem like much just being able to win one planet, but if you're going to deny Broderick his ideal victory condition, that's going to be pretty great. And look at those, all of those units in Broderick's HQ. I guess they could reposition themselves at Planet 3, and then you could go for Planet 5 victory if you're Broderick. Planet number 5, by the way, is going to be Planum, the Move, a non-Warlord unit planet that you control, by the way. We see another HQ phase having come and gone. That's going to be 2 cards, 4 resources for each of our players. And, note, last round, that was Taurus providing no battle ability whatsoever for our AM players. So the initiative is now once again in the possession of Broderick, and therefore thus far, for the cost of 2, he's only managed to generate a single guardsman token with the forward barracks, which he's invested 2 resources and a card into. Looks like we see a very interesting unit at planet number 2. That's going to be a copy of Vanguard Soldiers. That's a 3-cost 3/3 with a command icon. It's a soldier, and whenever it leaves play, you can ready a friendly army unit you control at its same planet. So it's therefore definitely not exactly going to be what I'd call a priority target, but it is going to be able to attack for 3 and potentially 4 were it at a green planet. But it's going to be another copy of the routing support, the Inquisitorial Fortress played out by War, and that is an Iron Halo on Captain Cato Sicarius. So we know that Iridial is not going to be a planet seen during today's game. That is the healing planet, and as much as Cato would like to remove his damage, I suppose he'll have to just kind of compromise and rely on that copy of Iron Halo there, a 3-cost attachment. It's a relic, therefore it disallows the Talisarian Tempest Blade, and I guess as a result, like whenever you take damage from an attack, you can exhaust your Iron Halo to, 1 time per round, basically prevent all that damage. It acts as a bit of a repeatable Indomitable, but it's triple the price, but potentially you could use it 7 times during a game, and perhaps someday more if we see a ready attachment effect. But note, planet number 3, we see a copy of Sicarius' Chosen, the 3-cost signature army unit of Captain Cato Sicarius. That's going to bounce into play. It's a 2/3 with a command icon, and its ability is to deal a point of damage to an enemy unit at an adjacent planet, and to pull that over to the current planet of the Sicarius' Chosen. So note that copy of Vanguard Soldiers has been pulled away from planet number 2, and that's potentially going to deny a couple of resources of Broderick Worr because he no longer has a command icon laden unit positioned at that planet. Broderick's movement is going to be rather heavily confined. He could go to planet number 3, but there's that Sicarius' Chosen opposing him there. There's that copy of Vashyal Trailblazer, but Broderick himself has got that Sakhalem Shrine Guard, and he's also got that copy of the Vanguard Soldiers. That's going to be a whole hell of a lot of damage he's going to be able to dish out. Note that since the Vanguard Soldiers are currently at a green planet, therefore they're going to be able to swing for 4, just like that Anxious Infantry platoon, and our current planet number 5, a possible victory condition for Broderick Worr. That is going to be Planum. It's a 1-card, 1-resource planet, so that might be an okay destination for him, but looks like our Space Marine, I guess the earliest he might be able to win, well, I guess it could be the exact same. There's kind of a dearth of those blue tech icons, but we could see a tech win at 4 and then 5, and that would win it for our Space Marine, or the SM player could do 1, 3, and 5. So kind of a lot of choices, and a lot of different variables remain to be determined. But planet number 1, as both of our players are deciding where exactly they want to send their warlords, is the Steel 1 resource planet. We've now got a copy of Honored Librarian positioned at that location. It's a 3-cost 4/2 with a command icon, and so long as you contain possess a non-honored librarian unit at that planet, it cannot be the direct target of attacks. Looks like Cato goes to planet number 4. He's going to drop off an Earthcast Technician there. Maybe he's going to try to win through those blue tech tech icons? Who knows? Broderick instead looks like he arrives to planet number 3, so there's going to be all kinds of combat going on at that planet, and I would imagine that Sicarius' Chosen is about to be blasted into oblivion. But planet number 1 is going to be a couple of resources to the left for Cato. Note that the Trailblazer is now repositioning to planet number 2. Planet number 3 is going to be a couple of cards to the right for Broderick. Planet number 4 is going to be a card and a resource for Captain Cato Sicarius, and planet number 5 is going to be won by neither player. Planet number 1 is going to be won by our Space Marine player. That is going to be 1 additional planet added to his 1 victory display, and that is going to be minus a resource for War if he had any, and plus 1 resource for Captain Cato Sicarius. And I believe those resource tokens that Cato has, I believe they're indicative of actually 3 resources. I could definitely be wrong, but I believe Captain Cato Sicarius has got one hell of a stockpile. The Vanguard soldiers at 3 take a swing of 4. They kill the Sicarius' Chosen, and that is going to be a battle won by Broderick. That's going to be a forced random card discard, and now let us see what is going to get discarded. Our Space Marine is going to get rid of something. Let's hope for his sake it isn't anything too terribly valuable. It's going to be another copy of Veteran Brother Maxo, so you can only have 1 unique at a time in play. Looks like Cato actually did something pretty devious in showing up to Aatrox Prime, because note, that's going to be Aatrox Prime dealing a point of damage to... no, looks like it's going to be Broderick Worr, so he decided to spare the Anxious Infantry Platoon, the Stalwart Ogryn, the Vanguard Soldiers, and the Sacalum Shrine Guard, and I guess instead he's just dead set on destroying Broderick. And remember that Broderick does have an affixed copy of the Commissarial Bolt Pistol, so if a bunch of friendly units start to be destroyed in mass, that's going to be a lot of damage dealt out to our reasonably formidable Space Marine, and something like an Honored Librarian could definitely be picked apart relatively easily by a bunch of procs from our signature attachment here. But not a lot of signature cards yet drawn by Captain Cato Sicarius, and a lot of signature cards in Broderick Worr, and I suppose with the lone exception of Summary Execution, just kind of a card I'm not a big fan of. Broderick has got just a rock solid signature, squad, I guess. I don't know, his custom cards are really good, is what I'm trying to say. My mastery of the English language has failed me, so... let us see. We've got a copy of the Ubiquitous Rogue Trader at planet number 4. That is going to be a 1 cost, 1 command icon, 0/1 with a +1 resource bonus. I would imagine that Cato's probably wishing to himself that that were a Void Pirate at the moment. But I guess... in regard to where we want to have our Warlords show up, Farron winning at that planet really isn't going to do Cato much good, if any. If we see our guard player capture planet 2 the following round, that means he'll have to win the final planets. Otherwise, we'd have to see our AM player win planets 1 and 3. And just given his kind of lack of resources, I think there's kind of a motley assortment of tokens there, and I'm not sure what exactly they represent on Broderick's side of the table. I would imagine it's probably going to be unlikely that he's going to be able to end up winning at planet number 1, because we may well see our Space Marine go to planet number 1. We may well see our Space Marine show up at planet 3. Looks like our Space Marine was lucky indeed. He came across his other 1, or maybe 1 of 3 at most, copies of the Imperial Fist's Devastators. That is going to be a forward barracks destroyed, and for the cost of 4, if you can get a 4/3 soldier with a couple command icons, and you can destroy your opponent's forward barracks, then that is a hell of a thing. It had to be deployed at a... wow, that's an unusual card. That's going to be a copy of Calculated Strike, destroying a troop transport. That is one hell of a card, and dear viewers, the Russian meta, this is some next level anti-Broderick Worr tech. So Calculated Strike, I believe it's a cost of 1. It's destroy target limited card. This is the first time I've ever seen it played. But wow, troop transport is going to be gone, so that's kind of a 1-2 punch directly to Broderick Worr. I'll keep this family friendly here, but yes, troop transport is a zero-cost limited support where you can put a guardsman token into play at a target planet, and if that's a green planet, you put 2 into play, and need I remind you, at a green planet, those are 2/2 soldier trait units. So, God, that is just a hugely powerful card, and that was such a beautiful combo by Vasily. Well done. Very, very glad that I decided to commentate this game today. So thank you again to Anton Elizarov for sending in all of this footage, and thank you to the Russian meta for just giving me this fantastic opportunity. But planet number 3, note, we've got a copy of Stalwart Ogren, which means both players are going to be tied in regard to command. Planet number 4, that's going to be a copy of Sanctioned Psyker, which that's interesting. It's a 1 attack value unit with 4 hit points while it's sitting at that green planet, but 2 command icons is not going to be enough to win over 3. Oh, God, that hurts. That's going to be a copy of Exterminatus played on Barless there, and now it all makes sense why Aatrox Prime targeted the HQ and not planet number 2. So Exterminatus, I think maybe that's one of the only times I've seen that played, and God damn, national champion, you are just an absolute delight tonight. So, for the cost of 3, Exterminatus is you target a non-first planet. You destroy each and every non-unique unit at that planet. That was a Sakhalem Shrine Guard destroyed. That was actually a Stalwart Ogren erroneously destroyed. It's immune to enemy events. But the Vanguard Soldier was dead, the Sakhalem Shrine Guard was dead, and I believe there was at least one other unit positioned at that planet. So that was a hell of a thing, and like I said, unfortunately that Stalwart Ogren should have remained in play at that planet. But looks like we see a copy of Sicarius' Chosen being played to planet number 4. That's going to be a Stalwart Ogren taking a point of damage and being dragged over to that planet, Scorpion style. And I guess now we'll have to see if any mortal combat occurs at that last planet. Perhaps Broderick is going to end up channeling the frosty powers of Sub-Zero. We'll have to see. I guess Stalwart Ogrens are immune to enemy events, but definitely not enemy army units. And as our players decide where exactly they want to send their warlords, let us see how toasty this command phase gets. So, planet number 1 is going to be that route, a target non-warlord unit planet. And I guess our Space Marine player is positioned to pick that up, although if he doesn't send his warlord to that planet, Inquisitorial Fortress could banish the Vashyah Trailblazer away from that planet. I guess, you know, our AM player isn't exactly needing to worry about any of his units being routed, but Cato shows up at 3, Broderick instead shows up at 4, so planet number 1 is going to be a couple of resources for Cato, planet 2 is going to be nothing for either player, planet number 3 is going to be a card and a resource for Cato. Aatrox Prime, by the way, is going to be able to blast Broderick Worr and the Stalwart Ogren and the Sanctioned Psyker, and man, that's going to be a hell of a thing, but yeah, planet number 4 is going to be a card and a resource there to the right for Broderick, so we're going to see battles at planet number 1, planet number 3, and planet number 4. Will we see Inquisitorial Fortress drive the Vashyah Trailblazer away from that planet? If it does not happen, then that means it's going to be a red material type icon added to the victory display of Vasily, but it doesn't really matter at all. Looks like it does happen. That's going to be him winning that, but he doesn't have any targets eligible to route. Actually, I take that back. He routed his own copy of Honored Librarian, presumably to drop that off at a planet where resides Captain Cato Sicarius the following round, so that's a fantastic unit. Cato can sit there. He can basically ingest one attack thanks to the Iron Halo, and then, you know, the Honored Librarian can ready and then attack multiple times for 4, and Indomitables can keep Cato alive, and that can be a fantastic bit of damage. But summary execution happens at planet number 4. I missed what unit was discarded, but that's going to be summary execution, turning that planet green. That means Broderick draws a card. He also uses a copy of, well, wait a sec. So summary execution was, okay, it must have been discarded as shields, because it's already a green planet. Aatrox Prime blasted planet number 4, so note, note that each of those units has taken a point of damage, except for the Stalwart Ogryn. Summary execution must have kept it alive, but preemptive barrage results in the Stalwart Ogryn attacking for 3 during the ranged skirmish round, and that means the Imperial Fist's Devastators are outright killed. Broderick himself, with the ranged keyword, thanks to that 1-cost AM loyal 2 shield value event, is going to be able to attack for 2. 3 because of his bolt pistol. So that's going to be a dead Sicarius is chosen, and then the Sanctioned Psyker just mops it up. That's going to be a rogue traitor killed as well during the ranged skirmish rounds. Now Planum is going to afford Broderick the opportunity to relocate either of his army units to the planet of his choice. And now he's got this incredibly nasty Space Marine train to try to deal with, and I'm not exactly certain what Broderick Worr has in regards to appetitive or at all effective options in order to attempt to do so. The Stalwart Ogryn is going to be repositioned to planet number 1, but if Cato shows up at that planet during the following round, he's going to deposit the Honored Librarian, he's going to deposit the Vashyat Trailblazer. The Vashyat Trailblazer is going to be able to mobile away to planet number 2 to set itself up for the following combat to be, ready going into the first round of combat, the following round, and let us see what exactly happens. So, Stalwart Ogryn chilling at planet number 1. Captain Cato Sicarius with a couple of homeboys in his HQ just chilling, probably sipping on 40s, and let's see. The initiative token is once again in the possession of Broderick Worr. We've seen an HQ phase, but of course there's no new planets, and now we're just going to be down to 3. Planet number 1. Looks like Broderick Worr is going to stand a strong likelihood of being able to win at that planet. It's going to be a copy of Vanguard Soldiers entering play, so they're going to be able to swing for 4, and again, if they're dead, then that means you could potentially ready your Stalwart Ogryn there. They're immune to enemy events, not friendly army units. Cato's Stronghold graces the tabletop, so for the cost of 2, I believe it reads, whenever one of your SM units destroys an enemy unit, I believe it's with an attack, you can ready one of your SM units. So it's a rather powerful effect there. Again, it's great if Cato's got his Tempest Blade, but I'll definitely take whatever it is that I can get with Cato's Stronghold. Action advantage, go figure, pretty powerful effect. Broderick throws out a copy of Staging Ground, so for the cost of 1 as an action, you can use it during the command phase or generally during the combat phase to deploy an up to 2 cost unit from your hand at a target planet. A little bit of a built-in combat trick there, of course, repeatable. It is something you do have to exhaust. But let's see where Cato and Worr decide to send themselves during the command phase. I guess if Cato goes to planet number 1, he had better hope to high hell that he's got a couple Indomitables in hand. Staging Ground could put another AM unit into play at a green planet and be a nightmare for him. And then I suppose we could also see another copy or 2 of Elysian Assault Team. Cato decides to go to planet number 3, and this is very interesting because Broderick also decides to show up at that planet, and this means this command phase is not going to go well for Cato, and he's not going to be able to trigger Aatrox Prime to deal out any damage. But planet number 1 is going to be a couple of cards for Broderick to the right. Planet number 2 is going to be a card and a resource for our Space Marine, and planet number 3 is going to be a card and a resource to the right, thanks to that Sanctioned Psyker for Broderick. And I may as well make this comment now. I find it very ironic that we have a Russian player playing as Commissar Broderick Worr. But Boundless is going to be captured no contest by Pavel, and that is going to be a forced random card discard. That's going to be the 2-cost signature event, the Fury of Sicarius, discarded. So AM players generally don't run a lot of really high HP units. The Fury of Sicarius is when, with an attack, you damage an enemy unit. You can pay a couple of resources, and then you destroy that unit outright. It's kind of something that discourages Cato from running Crushing Blow. Well, that's not even right. Crushing Blow is probably best against Warlords and kind of lower, medium HP units, and then the Fury of Sicarius is great against, Chaos Elites and Orcs and ridiculous things like that. But let's see here. So Boundless is going to be captured. That means that Broderick only is going to have to pick up one more green Strongpoint type icon planet, I say, as if he didn't have to win at planet number 7, and the same thing goes for our Space Space Marine, this is going to be down to planet number 7, but battle erupts at planet number 3, or 7 if you want to call it that. Broderick takes a swing. That's going to be a dead Vashyah Trailblazer. And now Broderick is potentially going to be attacked by Captain Cato Sicarius. Cato takes a swing. Is it going to be at Broderick or is it going to be at the Sanctioned Psyker? If it were me, it would probably be directed at Broderick. That's going to be a copy of the Emperor's Warrant discarded as a shield. That is my personal favorite card. I'll just throw that out there. It's not the most powerful card. Well, it's not the most used card. It's not the most... it's not the best card in the world, but it is my personal favorite. But it's got a couple of shield icons associated with it. That means Ward takes no damage from Cato. We come to the end of a combat round. God, it must be nice to not have to deal with forward barracks. Such fascinating tech choices that Vasily has made today. Very distinctly anti-Broderick Worr. Like Calculated Strike, what else would you normally destroy with that? I guess a copy of Promotion or... God, like a recon drones and a homing beacon and a few other things, but very curious choice, but it definitely pays off in spades to get rid of those troop transports. But we've come to the end of a combat round. We now see initiative. I guess, remember, Broderick is going to be able to attack for 3 with his signature attachment, Cato, who's sitting at just 1 HP remaining. He does still have his Iron Halo unused. The Sanctioned Psyker is going to be able to attack for 3, and I guess it's an Honored Librarian sitting there with Captain Cato Sicarius, so we'll have to see if Broderick ends up being bloodied. The odds of our AM player winning, if Broderick is indeed bloodied, are going to drop off dramatically, and note that that copy of Staging Ground has not been used by Broderick. The Sanctioned Psyker is not a soldier, so we're not going to have to worry about Elysian assault teams. Looks like Vasily takes a moment to check his opponent's discard pile, and what exactly could he be checking for? My heart tells me that he's probably looking for copies of maybe 2 value shield cards, things around, like things of that nature. Just because, like I said, it's not as if we're going to see any Elysian assault teams unless Staging Ground dumps something into play. He takes a moment to check his own discard pile as well. Cato's got the Iron Halo, which is going to be his get out of 1 attack free card, and then Cato's going to be able to take 1 attack, and then as soon as that occurs... Okay, so Sanctioned Psyker must have taken a swing at Captain Cato Sicarius. We see the Iron Halo block a single point of damage, and now what are we going to see? Is it going to be the okay, that's going to be the Inquisitorial Fortress routing the Honored Librarian, so for the cost of 2 resources, and Cato is going to take a swing, so wow, this is pretty bold here. That's going to be Cato taking a shot at that Sanctioned Psyker. We see Inspirational Fervor discarded as a shield, and we see a cost of 2, that's going to be the Fury of Sicarius being played, and now I can only imagine this is going to be a bit of a calculated risk. Our video rewinds ever so slightly. I can't help it. That's just how this footage came to me. Or maybe it skipped forward a little bit, but I guess the point is Broderick Worr took a swing. Indomitable is going to block that attack, and now we see Cato taking an attack. So that must have been Cato's stronghold, resulting in Cato being readied. And like I said before, I just commentate the games. I don't necessarily edit the footage. So maybe our players edited out calling I don't know, like a TO or something like that. But thanks to the death of the Sanctioned Psyker, Cato's stronghold readied Cato. Cato took a swing, dealt a couple of points of damage to Broderick Worr there. Indomitable managed to spare Captain Cato Sicarius from being bloodied. And at the end of a combat round, I suppose, Captain Cato's... Well, whether it was at the end of a combat round or he used his combat turn to retreat, the point is Captain Cato Sicarius left that planet, and Planum resulted in a Vanguard soldiers being moved from the HQ of Broderick to planet number 2, and that means it's going to be ready should a combat occur at that planet, going into the combat of our probably second to last round here. So we've got an Honored Librarian being thrown out to planet number 2. Note that the initiative is going to be in our Space Marine player. Broderick Worr is sitting not very pretty at just 2 damage remaining. And what's What's interesting about this is if Broderick goes to planet number 2, Aatrox Prime is presumably going to be able to fire at planet number 2 and hit Broderick. If Broderick goes to planet number 1, he's probably going to get bloodied. If he goes to planet number 1 and retreats, Aatrox Prime is going to be able to fire into the HQ, and then that's going to be a very, very, very wounded Broderick indeed. But are either of our players going to be using any additional deploy actions? We've got a copy of Troop Transport being tossed into the HQ of Pavel there, and now do we have a calculated strike again from our SM player? That would be a hell of a thing, and keep in mind that our 7th planet, the decisive planet, is going to be great in that you could throw troop transport at that planet and generate 2 guardsman tokens, not just 1. We've got an ammo depot entering play for Broderick Worr. I guess the rule of thumb here is better late than never. 1 cost orc common support, where if you have 3 or fewer cards in hand, you can exhaust it in order to draw a card. Looks like both of our players are going to send their respective warlords to planet number 2. Note that Broderick has put out a copy of Rogue Trader at that planet, so he's going to have 2 command icons relative to the, I believe, 1 command icon of Captain Cato Sicarius. So planet number 1 is going to be a card, and oh god, calculated strike, doing it again, destroying that troop transport. That is one hell of a thing. That very maligned Corset card is kicking all kinds of ass today. Vasily, color me very impressed. Pavel, you're a proper sir, and I very much appreciate your commenting on my YouTube videos and engaging with me on Twitter, but it is just a beautiful thing to seeing Broderick Worr be so thoroughly picked apart by this unusual SM deck. But what I'm trying to say, planet number 1 is going to be a card and a resource for Cato. Planet number 2 is going to be a card and a resource to the right for Pavel. Looks like veteran brother Maxos has put into play a copy of Sicarius' Chosen. It drags the Vanguard soldiers from planet number 2 to planet number 1. The initiative is in the possession of our Space Marine. He attacks with the Blood Angels veterans. 3 attack equals 3 hit points. That's going to be a dead Vanguard soldier, and now things are looking pretty grim for homeboy Broderick Worr, garrisoned at planet number 2. A Rogue Trader is going to be exhausted to fund a suppressive fire, so a 0-cost event there. It's going to knock out that Honored Librarian. Very fine play, if I don't say so myself. And now Broderick Worr is not going to have initiative. It's all going to come down to this. Captain Cato Sicarius is going to be able to take a swing. He's potentially going to be able to bloody Broderick Worr, but that Iron Halo is also going to be a great protective benefit for him. Staging Ground could throw an AM unit into play at that planet, and if Cato is exhausted, that could result in him being bloodied. Speak of the Staging Ground Devil, well, maybe not. I guess, okay, so maybe that was a little premature. Okay, all right, so Pavel, yes, throws out a copy of Sanctioned Psyker, everyone's nightmare. Man, I just hate seeing that Staging Grounded into play. But the important thing about that is it's going to be a 1/4 at a green planet, and 1 damage is just as, likely to kill, well, bloody, Cato with 1 hit point remaining as is anything else. Not... I don't know, a rose by any other name or something. Like, it need not be a Black Legion Helldrake to bloody a Captain Cato Sicarius. My mother always used to tell me, so at planet 2, we've got a dead Rogue Trader. I guess, for whatever reason, we've not seen Aatrox Prime resolved yet. That should have fired at planet number 2, so I'm kind of lost, I suppose, in regard to what exactly is happening here. Or perhaps we're currently resolving Aatrox Prime. Or perhaps not, but for some reason that unit there, that Honored Librarian-looking fellow in Glare, has got a couple of damage tokens on it, so perhaps that's a mistake, but I guess we saw that Stalwart Ogren killed and the Rogue Trader killed, so that must have been through the resolution of what I can only imagine is indeed Aatrox Prime there. Looks like that is going to be a couple of points of damage dealt directly to an Honored Librarian. I have kind of missed how exactly that occurred. It could not have been the Emperor's Warrant or anything along those lines. Looks like Cato's Stronghold has resulted in that Honored Librarian being readied, and now, okay, yeah, there we go. So it was just a very slow resolution of Aatrox Prime. The Staging Ground and Suppressive Fire, all of that stuff happened prior to Aatrox Prime, and God, that about sucks. So Cato's Stronghold has resulted in that Honored Librarian being ready, but at planet number 2, where sits Broderick Worr with 1 HP, Preemptive Barrage means the Sanctioned Psyker is going to be able to attack for 1, and looks like a copy of Drop Pod Assault is going to be exhausted to spare Captain Cato Sicarius from being bloodied. 2 shields blocks 1 point of damage very nicely indeed. We see a copy of Iron Halo that is going to prevent the attack dealt out by Broderick, so Cato is still hale, and Cato takes a swing after Inquisitorial Fortress routs an Honored Librarian, and that is going to be Cato dealing a bloodying blow to Broderick, so Broderick is going to be flipped over to his 2/5 bloodied side, and now all of a sudden AM units are no longer going to be gaining their same beneficial abilities, so that is going to be a hell of a thing. Looks like that Sanctioned Psyker, currently attacking for 0, takes a couple of points of damage from Broderick. It took another couple of points from Broderick, and I guess perhaps Pavel forgot to retreat with it, but I guess the point is the Sanctioned Psyker being dropped back down to an attack value of 0, it dies. Cato manages to accrue 1 resource, and Vasily here, truly a man after mine own heart, picks up a resource from that kill. By the way, that's going to be the good game, I suppose, so GG, well played by both of our players. I was too busy talking to notice the end of this match, but there was absolutely nothing that Broderick Worr was going to be able to do to salvage that one. He was bloodied. He was just a 2/5 Warlord, and there was just a ton of Space Marine units standing between him and victory, and that just meant it was entirely impossible. What I was trying to say is that I really respected Vasily there for just having his Warlord at 1 HP for so long. It reminds me of my glory days playing Ragnar Blackmane in the Octagon Wa. So, fantastic play by both of these players. Kudos to Vasily for constructing such a monumentally entertaining Space Marine deck. Calculated Strike, what was that? But all the same, very well played by Pavel Illichev. And, you know, the Russian meta is quickly becoming some pretty reasonable friends of mine. It's always great to see them in action. So, there's 7 additional games remaining in this Store Championship series. I hope you enjoyed this match, and if you did, then as always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, do me a favor and share this content. The more individuals there are that stumble upon these videos, the more people see Conquest LCG, they may give the game a try, they might like what they experience, they might join our living card game community, and of course, the greater we are in number, the bigger message we send to Fantasy Flight Games, telling them to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would definitely love to hear from you on Facebook or on Twitter, and if you yourself are a content creator, then I doubly recommend you get in touch, just so I can promote your articles or videos or podcasts or whatever it is that you do personally to contribute to the Conquest community. If you ever feel inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant, I would be honored, humbled, and deeply appreciative were you to donate as little as $1 to my Patreon account. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and once again, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.